Listeners, help us report this story.
You can visit our news site, Gothamist.com, where you'll find our story and a Google form to fill out, what you paid for your tree, how tall that is, and where you bought it. We're planning on putting together a map at some point showing how prices stack up, and we'll report back to you what we find.
All right. That's WNYC's Karen Yee. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Janae.
WNYC support comes from the Whitney Museum of American Art, offering a year of art experiences with a Whitney gift membership, including unlimited admission to Highwire, Calder Circus at 100, and the 2026 Biennial. More at whitney.org.
Almost 20 years ago, legendary rapper Nas proclaimed hip-hop is dead. Well, this fall, there were no rap songs in the Billboard Top 40 for the first time since 1990.
I can tell you from the music industry right now, hip-hop is not a priority.
So is hip-hop dead, or just so dominant that it's infused into almost every other music genre? That's on the next On Point. Weeknights at 8 on WNYC.
Marketplace Morning Report is next, and later on Morning Edition, the Zac Brown Band's first 5 albums hit #1 on the Billboard country charts. Their latest album is Love and Fear, and Brown says it's inspired by his own experience growing up.
And I haven't really, unless someone knows me very well and is very close to me, I haven't shared a lot of what drove me into music.
More from musician Zac Brown. That's coming up ahead in the next hour of Morning Edition from NPR and WNYC. 20 degrees as you start your Friday. It's a cold morning. Expect highs today around 32. Cloudy skies ahead tonight, and there's a slight chance of snow after 10.
Can a Hollywood studio get too big?
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Mercury. Mercury brings together banking, credit cards, invoicing, and more to help entrepreneurs manage their finances. Learn more at mercury.com.
I'm David Brancaccio in Los Angeles. A bidding war over Warner Brothers Discovery is heating up. One suitor, Netflix, appears to be pulling ahead of the rest, but the deal is not sealed. Marketplace's Nancy Marshall-Genzer reports.
Warner Brothers Discovery is apparently in exclusive talks with Netflix. This was first reported by Bloomberg, which says Warner Brothers would sell its film and TV studios and HBO Max streaming service to Netflix and spin off its cable channels, including CNN, before the deal closed. Comcast and Paramount also want to buy Warner Brothers. Paramount is calling the bidding process tainted and says Warner Brothers is favoring Netflix. Any deal Warner Brothers makes has to be approved by regulators. Some lawmakers are already raising antitrust concerns. Republican Congressman Darrell Issa of California wrote a letter to the Justice Department. He says if Netflix and Warner Brothers combined, they'd control more than 30% of the streaming market, a threshold he says, quote, is traditionally viewed as presumably problematic under antitrust law. I'm Nancy Marshall-Genzer for Marketplace.
This morning, we'll get a reading on inflation, the go-to number for the guardians of interest rates at the Federal Reserve. Personal consumption expenditures has that price increase information, but the data we get today is kind of moldy cheese. It's September's data, delayed by the government shutdown. The Fed is expected to lower interest rates slightly next week at a time that it's especially hard to tell if it's inflation or a flagging job market. That's the most pressing problem. S&P futures are up 0.2%. NASDAQ futures are up 0.4%, about 2.5 hours before the opening bell.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Viking, exploring the world in comfort. With a fleet of small ships, Viking offers travel experiences for the thinking person. Discover more at Viking.com. And by the United States Postal Service, offering holiday stamps for purchase at over 40,000 supermarkets and drugstores, and at wholesale clubs Costco, Walmart, Sam's Club, and BJ's.
Orlando, a few weeks ago, The Economist magazine people convened what was called the Space Economy Summit. In Houston, a few weeks earlier, it was the Lunar and Mars Economy Summit. There's no economy on the moon now, but governments and private companies are hard at work to change that. This week on this program, we're looking at opportunities on the moon and potential costs. We've heard from a moon economist and 2 companies laying the plumbing for a lunar economy. But what should be the guardrails? Mary Jane Rubenstein is Dean of Social Sciences and a Professor of Religion and Science and Technology Studies at Wesleyan University. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
You know, I was going to ask, when we think about an emerging lunar economy, who owns the moon? But then, I found the 1967 Outer Space Treaty, which seems to ban private ownership of celestial bodies. Is it a settled matter?
Well, it is settled and it is not settled. It is settled insofar as over 100 major nations have signed on to the Outer Space Treaty, which dictates, as you've said, that nobody can own part or all of a planetary body. It is not settled insofar as the U.S. recently, in 2015 in particular, has passed legislation arguing that citizens, by which they mean corporations, can in fact own the materials that they recover from a lunar body. So you can't own part of the moon, but you can own the stuff that the moon contains.
All right, well, that brings us right to mining and the rules that might apply if they find something of value that they would like to extract on the moon. What protocols might guide that?
It's actually not clear whether or not ownership is guaranteed or protected. And so that is going to be worked out in the courts, and it'll be worked out on the lunar surface, really.
Yeah, and that gets us to, who would get to do that. That would be the fastest and the mightiest, the country or group or interest that gets there first and can defend the perimeter.
That's right. So there are plenty of nations that object to the way that the U.S. and some of the other larger nations have gone about making unilateral legislation on these matters. But those tend to be non-spacefaring nations. And the rules, it seems, are going to be set by those nations that can make it up there and set policy as they go.
You could just imagine a private interest wanting to build a big structure on the lunar surface that would be visible from Earth, like a perpetual piece of advertising. Someone might object to that.
A couple of years ago, when a mission, a privately funded mission, intended to deposit human remains on the lunar surface in a kind of ritual burial. And the Navajo Nation objected to this and said, you can't just do whatever you want on the surface of the moon. And these corporations said, yes, we absolutely can. And the Navajo Nation appealed to NASA, and NASA said, we don't have any control over private corporations. So we are in this age where private actors in a fairly unregulated fashion are able to pursue all kinds of interests without much oversight and over the objections of many other actors.
As humans map out what the rules might be for using the moon, I mean, as you think about the ethics of answering that question, I mean, one thing that would come to mind would be one hopes it's a transparent process.
I think one of the major impediments to that openness is that there is no operative relationship between the U.S. and China when it comes to space matters. It's almost seen as an imperative to maintain some kind of secrecy in order to rival China, to make sure that the U.S. gets there in order to set the rules before China does.
Mary J. Rubenstein is Dean of Social Sciences and Professor of Religion and Science and Technology Studies at Wesleyan University in Connecticut. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Marketplace.org has more of our Moon Economy series. And when we say moon, some think rockets. As a certified Level 2 amateur rocketeer, I see lessons for stock market investing in the glorious successes and ignominious failures of my own launches. That video is streamable from TikTok, Facebook, or Instagram, where Marketplace APM is the way to find us. Our executive producer is Nancy Fargali. Our digital team includes Antoinette Brock, Emily McCune, and Dylan Miettinen. Our engineers are Rachel Breeze and Tessa Block. In Los Angeles, I'm David Brancaccio. This is the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.
WNYC receives support from